Alright, so we're about to cut these mufflers. So we got a 3-inch inlet and it's got dual 2.5-inch outlets. So you can see I put a mark here, roughly where we're going to cut. So this is just a DeWalt Portaband, and it's got this, I think it's Swag Off-Road makes this. It's a little table you bolt it up to, and it kind of makes like a little mini vertical bandsaw. So you can see our marks. We're just going to run this through the bandsaw, chop these right about here, and that's the mark for a 3-inch pipe to butt up against. Let's see, I think I have a section I can show you. Yeah, something like that. So that'll get us, I think these are like 2.5 or something, but that'll get us dual 3-inch outlets. So cut that real quick. Well, we cut these off, and here's the 3-inch pipes. You can see on the inside, pretty close. Not much restriction there. So I've got both of these done. Now we can put this back in the car. Alright, here we go. So we just cut this muffler. We've actually done several things. So we marked this with a Sharpie, like we did a minute ago. We went over to the vertical bandsaw, we cut them, and the way this muffler is kind of welded, it's warped a little, and there's like a welded bead on this side, and so it didn't quite sit perfectly straight in the bandsaw. So what we ended up doing, I started cutting, it was kind of walking on me, so I cut it to where I'd have to grind it to finish it. So that's what I did. I've got just a regular old grinder, and this is probably something to keep in mind if you're doing fab work. So you want to have an angle grinder. This is I think it's like an 11 amp version or something. There's a less powerful one, and I actually prefer that one. It's lighter, and this thing gets super hot when you're trying to hold it. The old one, I could run it for 20 minutes, no problem. This thing, even after a minute, you can hardly hold it, and then that's kind of annoying. I'm going to buy another one that's smaller. But yeah, so when you're doing fab work, you want to have a grinding wheel, something like that, and you want a sanding wheel. These things are amazing. Normally if you're sanding on something with like sandpaper, it's really slow, but this thing spins so fast. I mean, these just do amazing. They're really quick, does a nice job. So you definitely want to have those. So anyway, we cut these, we kind of roughly cut it with the saw since it was crooked, and then I just took the grinder and ground it until it was about right, and took the sanding wheel to finish it off, and then at that point it was looking pretty good. We got a wire wheel and a drill. I know they make wire wheels for grinders, but I don't have one. I just have a drill, so I took a wire wheel attachment and a drill and kind of went around this. And this thing's 409 stainless, but they painted it with some gray paint, and I'm going to be TIG welding this, so just took a wire wheel, went around that, got all the paint off, got that clean, and seems like a lot of work to get ready to weld, and the truth is we're not quite done. Now I've got to hit this with some acetone to get any kind of oils off the surface. And if I was being extra amazing, I'd probably get a stainless wire brush and knock off any possible oxide layer on the outside right before I weld it. I think I got one of those, but I haven't done that so far, and it's been okay. So yeah, this is the prep work. This will get our 2 outlets ready for 3-inch tubing. So here's an example. Let's see. Here's a 3-inch tube. Line that up. You see that fits really nice. Then on the inside, 3-inch. So this actually may make it a tiny bit louder, because before these were tapering to 2.5-inch outlets, and now it's going to be 3-inch. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe that changes the sound a little. I'm sure having the pipes and tips will change it a little as well. So we'll see what happens. But I'm liking how this turned out. This also shortened it, because this used to poke out, you know, like this far or something. So now we'll be able to hook a bend right out of this. That'll be nice. So anyway, that's where we're at here. Alright, so I'm going to go over how to, after you cut a pipe, how to get it ready to weld. So you can, depending on what kind of quality you're trying to do, you might follow some of the steps, all the steps, or none of the steps. But I'll show you how I'm doing this. I'm going to do probably 80 or 90% of what probably should be done to get ready. So here, we actually didn't even cut this. This is finished now. You can see this looks clean. So the edges are, there we go. Edges look pretty clean. There's no burrs. Feels good. Inside, outside, it's good to go. So here's what we did. As I purchased this, the outside edge actually had like torn metal and stuff. I don't know if they just sheared it to cut it or how that happened, but it was really nasty. was actually hard to install a pipe in and out of. I assume now it's easy. I haven't actually tested that, but let's try this. Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, that's a little better. But it's also much better to weld. So say you just cut this and you want to do it. So if you cut it with a grinder, you know, it's probably not perfectly straight. It's going to have discoloration and burrs and all kinds of stuff from melting metal. If you cut it with a saw blade, you'll get a much cleaner cut and there's really no heat affected area. But once you cut it, you want to grind it down about as flat as you can get it. So once you've got that done, I take a sander. So here's my grinder. I got like a grinding wheel and a sanding wheel. So that's my grinding wheel there, and these are little flap sanding wheels. These things are awesome, by the way. So I grind that down, get it basically get it as flat as you can, and then take the sanding wheel and go around it and kind of smooth it out. That'll give you a better surface finish. And basically you're using the grinding wheel for speed and the sanding wheel for making it pretty. So once I've done that, you know, you're thinking, okay, cool, ready to weld. Well, there's still a few things left. So this actually had burrs all over it even after hitting it with the sander. So the sander gets this top surface looking a lot better, but it had burrs everywhere. So there's a couple ways you can do this. Now this is like a 3-inch pipe, so I can actually reach in here with this inside edge. It's kind of hard to show, yeah, like that, and kind of deburr the inside edge. That's kind of hard to do, and that wouldn't work on a smaller pipe. So this is what I have. Now, I'm not even sure what you call this tool, but it's for deburring circles, and these work amazing. So say this circle here, you just reach inside of this like that. So there we go. So you basically apply pressure and drag it. I'm not putting any pressure right now, but as you go around here, it'll take the burr off the inside, and that works really nice for deburring the inside of a circle. And those things are cheap too. But then the outside, this one's easy. Just use a file. There's a decent little file, and I went around the outside, and that makes a huge difference. Now I've got the inside deburred, the outside deburred. That top edge was done with the sanding wheel, and you can see this looks really nice. So now, if I want to weld this, I'll just take, I've got some acetone, I keep in a little bottle, just for convenience. You can just pop this off real quick. So I'll take that, throw it on a rag, go around this and try to get any oils off of it. And at that point, I guess if you were really good, you'd take a stainless brush and probably brush the outside to try to knock any oxide layers off right before you weld it. That's about it. If you follow most of those steps, you'll get a much better, you'll get a higher quality weld, it'll look better, and it's also easier to weld, because when you have contamination, that just makes everything more difficult. So this is probably more important for TIG welding when you're building exhaust, but it helps with everything. Having good fitment makes it easier to weld, and cleaner metal is always going to be easier to weld. So figured I'd show you guys a few steps. This is how I go about it, and just makes life easier. Alright, so we're working on this. We kind of got the muffler in place, and we're looking at how we're going to route these pipes. One of them is just a 90 coming right out of that exhaust tip, so it seems pretty straightforward. But what I realized was, the concern came to mind, what about this tire? Where does it line up relative to the exhaust? And as you can see, the tire is kind of lined up. It could possibly interfere if that pipe just came straight out. It's at least conceivable. The muffler's not completely behind the rear of the tire. So started looking, sure enough, we got this tire bolted up, and you can see, we knew it hit, but we started looking, so I drew some lines. Let's see. So that first one is kind of basically how far the tire comes back if it just went straight up. So this inner one, here to here and across, that's where the tire would be if it moved up anymore, if that metal wasn't there. And then I drew a second one to give it a little bit of clearance. Now we may give it some more, but at a minimum we'd probably want that amount. You can see that I kind of sort of lined it up with one of the features of the bumper, but anyway, we can see that whole chunk of metal is going to have to go. And once we know that, we can kind of compare it to the exhaust, and we can see that should that pipe come all the way this way, it would interfere with the tire. So we definitely got to keep that in mind. Luckily, and you can see here, same thing, the inside of that tire shifted could interfere with the tire. So we'll look at that. We were just going to do a 90. We may just do a pair of 45s to kind of cheat this. So say we come out of the muffler, it's hard to show 3 dimensions, but basically we'll come out here and do a 45 and then 45. Maybe we'll do that, but hopefully we can still run a 90 because the 90 has a large generous radius, so that it may work out that we have clearance. But this type of planning in your build, you know, if you're doing multiple things in the same area, you got to consider, you know, it would suck to build this exhaust and go, wow, that's great, and then immediately try to put the tires on and find out it hits the exhaust. So just part of the project, keeping up with everything, making sure that, you know, they're all going to be compatible with each other, so you save yourself some work.